Academic win list 10, number 1, compile, good. Lita, number 2.
An announcement of a major new policy initiative is expected to be intrinsic.
Not intrinsic, meaning
At least.
forthcoming, meaning it's coming soon. Think of coming forwards. Yeah, so forthcoming for that one. 3, James.
If you're not sure what to do, just watch the fellow walking beside you and try to do likewise.
Likewise, yeah, likewise, in the same way. Wise means way, or it can in certain circumstances mean way. Likewise, in a like way, a way like that, likewise. Yeah. Sadia, 4.
The fast food chains generally pay their workers low wages, thereby helping to depress wages for workers of the entire trade.
That's it. Depress, push down. Depress wages, collocation. 5, Nancy. That's right, whereby. It's like in, through this, through means of which, it's better to explain whereby. Yeah, so the marriages, and in the marriages this is what will happen, whereby, in this way. Yeah. Muhammad, 6.
If your son persists, if your son's fever persists more than a day or two, you would better take them. Then tie him to the rope again.
That's it. Persists, continues, persist. 7, Dilhani.
Vocabulary development is an
Intrinsic.
part of the curriculum of this ESL program.
Yeah, intrinsic, it's central. It's part of the characteristic of it. It can't be removed. It's like it's DNA. You can't take it away. If you did take it away, it wouldn't be the same thing. Another word, inherent. Inherent. Stuck in it. Here, this hair here means stick. Here, adhesive tape. Cohesive. A coherent statement, meaning, the words all have meaning and it sticks together, makes sense. So inherent, it's stuck in the thing, can't be taken out. Inherent, intrinsic, mean the same thing. Yeah, 8, Kate.
The government's so-called positive increase is actually a decrease in factor in the rise in the cost of living.
That's it, so-called. Use that term for when you want to distance yourself from something. You don't agree with it. It is called by other people this thing, but you don't necessarily agree with that name. So here, the person's saying, well, it's called an increase, but it's actually a decrease.
So-called means decrease?
No, so-called means you're distancing yourself from the name that other people give this thing. For example, Ned Kelly, I've told you the story of Ned Kelly. If you thought he was a violent criminal and not a hero, people have different positions, you might say the so-called hero, Ned Kelly, was captured by police. That means you don't agree with the use of that word. So it could be a noun like hero, or it could be heroic, adjective. It could be any word you want to distance yourself from. You can see why it'd be important in academic writing, because it's about opinion, isn't it? You're basically saying, many people use this particular word, but you don't sort of want anything to do with it. It's a kind of a distancing act. Yeah. All right, over the page, Rena, number 9.
Telephone inventor Alexander Graham Bell had
Graham is how we say that word.
Graham Bell had an odd habit of drinking his soup through a glass straw.
Yeah, that's it. I don't think it was very thick vegetable soup. Yeah. All right, odd habit. Yep, that's it. Odd, strange. Odd can mean a number of things, can't it? It can mean not even. Yeah. 10. Taiwan.
Students,
assembled
Yep.
on the playing field to watch the police or demonstration.
That's it. Assembled, gathered. Yeah. How'd you go? Who got a big fat 10? James. Yes. Anybody else? 10? No? Professors? Professors who get 10 for the academic word list? Well done. Alright. Yeah, I got 10. Oh, right. Team Bacon. Did you see the chase last night? You know how they have their teams? One of the teams was called Team Bacon. Why was it called Team Bacon? They always name them each week. Right. Who's keeping up with the news? What's happening with bacon this week?
It's connected to cancer.
That's right. And who connected it with cancer? Or who issued the statement?
WHO.
That's right. Very well done. Current Affairs Prize to...
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. The WHO issued the warning, didn't they? New research linking bacon to cancer, and bacon's been put in the list with smoking and alcohol as the very, very high factors. Carcinogenic. Cars flesh. That's where we get our word cancer from. It's also where you get the word sarcastic from. Cars, flesh. Genetic, produce. Is it? So when you see genic, somebody's photogenic, people take a lot of photos of them, they produce a lot of photos. Carcinogenic, etc. Gen means produce, generate, we've talked about this one, genetic fallacy. Creates flesh, big lump of flesh, cancer. Carcinogenic, yeah, so bacon's carcinogenic. All right, well, that is it. That's the academic word list. Now, depending on your result, you can judge your level of competence with this. And as you know, the first few are easy and it gets tougher and tougher. So congratulations to those who've got 10. You've got a good working vocabulary there. When I say working, remember, 2 levels of vocabulary, passive and active. And what we have to do, really what's being tested here is passive, isn't it? You're not having to act, well, you're putting it actively in a sentence. I think there's a little bit of activity about it, but really it's mainly testing your ability to understand it and sort of fit it into somebody else's sentence that they've constructed. It's not your construction. So really we've been testing this, and that's always obviously the first step for any bit of vocabulary. If you've got that, and you're getting 10 or high scores, your personal, because we're not going to be able to do it in this course, but your personal objective is to get it active. So all these words you're actively using yourself. If these are the most common words in academic writing, they're obviously going to be the most common words in professional writing and life. So if you want that core, which I assume you do, and you want it active in your emails and your reports and your speaking, then just keep working with that purple page. How else to do it but keep working with it. The other thing to do to keep your consciousness of these words, remember the academic word list highlighter. Any text, reading anything, a little bit of, I don't know, some of those alternate media I've shown you, you read a Guardian article, cut and paste it into the highlighter and just read it with that. And that'll increase your consciousness about all of these words. And, look, remember the trick of not just noticing the word, but, oh, look, there's a collocation for that word. Collocation, collocation, collocation. Because active use depends so much on, if that's the word, it depends on getting familiar with the partner words around it, doesn't it? The package, the neighbourhood. So I think the best way to do that is to highlight them and then read articles just almost automatically. You're going to read an article, cut and paste it into the highlighter and read it with these words highlighted. And you will absorb the collocations, particularly around those words, much more quickly. The next level of exercise, of course, is, remember the gap maker that I've showed you. You can take that same text, make a gap exercise out of it, use your highlighter as your answer sheet. It's all work, it's all time, it's all energy. I realise, we're all on rations with this, but at least you know what you can do. I would say, I've said it before, just remind you, because, heading 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the course, part of my job now is to remind you of some of the things we've done, like the highlighter and the gap maker and so on. If you just hear it once, you often forget. So, another point is these words, as I've said, they're the core of, doesn't matter what you're talking about, scientifically, academically, they sit in the middle there. That's why we've been looking at them. Okay, on a practical, basic level, if you ever have to do an IELTS or an ISLPR, an English testing activity with your writing, what would be one of the central things that they're looking for? Obviously good vocabulary and the grammar around advanced vocabulary. One of the best things you could do to get ready for an IELTS, because you don't know what question you're going to get, it could be anything, couldn't it? How do you develop your vocab? You work on that stuff, which is the core. Doesn't matter what the topic is, you're going to have a really nice collection of advanced vocabulary plus the collocations, and you use that stuff in your writing. I think pretty certainly it'll boost your score. So, just as a practical tip for future assessments. Likewise, with your writing assessments that we're using, part of that is using your academic vocabulary and having good collocations around that as well. So, yeah, just building a consciousness around academic words is important. Okay, that's one strand of the course has been vocabulary. We haven't finished with the vocabulary. I'm going to go back to next week. Remember those Latin words. We're now going to start looking again at roots and learning a bit more about word history. So this will help you decode new words. If you learn a root, I would say like this sort of thing. There's probably about 30 or 40 words in English that have that in them. So by learning one thing, you get the key to 30 or 40. If it's a bit less productive than that, maybe 5 or 10 other words. But this is, I think, one of your most efficient strategies. Learn the roots and you just get a whole bunch of keys that will unlock future words for you. So that's something we're going to do over the next remaining weeks. 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Yeah. So we'll go back to that list of 14 Latin words. We're about halfway through it. So if you can bring that along, I'll have a few more copies in case it's been put in the cat's bed or something. Cat litter. I know that's where most diploma material ends up. Yeah. Either as mulch on the tomatoes or cat litter. That I'll copy some more off for you. Alright, that's academic word list. In half an hour we're going to go, because I have got N210 lecture theatre booked and we were going to do a guest speaker but he couldn't come, so I still want to use the room. We're going to use it to start watching Dom's Party, the movie that the slang is about, yeah? So I'll be watching Aussies at a party, we're going to do the slang. Before we do that, I know we've got a couple of one little page to go. I don't know if we'll worry about that at this point. Let's move over. We'll do that sometime next week because it's going to take us a while to get to that point of the film. So let's do the Monash article just while we get a bit closer to 11 o'clock, which is when I've got the room booked.
What is molecular level?
What?
Molecular.
Molecular.
Molecular level? What is
Yeah, a molecule. So you've got an atom. Alright, then you've got like H2O, say. That's your molecule.
How do you spell it?
Molecule is the noun. So atoms that are joined together, molecule. So then you get your molecular, your adjective. That's your noun. Molecular, molecule. Molecular level, so down at the molecular level, something happens. Alright, we were on what paragraph? We got to 4, didn't we? Yeah. So let's just push on. We're looking at paragraph 4 and we'll just do what we were doing, reading it through. Okay, everyone got a copy? Rena, you got a copy of that Monash Uni?
Oh, yes.
Article? Okay,
Do you want to keep
let's go with that.
Do you want to keep
Oh yeah, thanks. Can I collect your pieces? Yeah, I'd just like to see how you went with number 10. Okay, word is 10. Thanks. Gonna write upside down, that's clever.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Alright, what is your view?
Thank you. All right, let's push on here. Paragraph 4, in explaining this mismatch, we are still in the summary part of the critical review. Yeah. So, Sadia, can you read the first half of that paragraph, please?
Number 4.
Yep, in explaining.
In explaining this mismatch of approaches, Villard and Flanchi propose that there are 3 fundamentally different learning styles.
All right, sorry, can I just remind people, we're also looking for collocations, aren't we? So put on your collocation spectacles, and we're looking for transferable collocations that you could put in a critical review on any topic, not all collocations, because some of them are subject specific, but we're looking for those ones that we can beg, borrow and steal and use in our own writing. Good, sorry, Sadie, go on.
The first of this is a reproductive approach. This involves students learning by memorizing information, solving problems, and following procedures set by the teacher. According to the authors, these types of activities are typical of high school education in Australia. The second approach is an analytical one and is thought to be typical of Australian tertiary education. At this level, students are expected to question and think critically about knowledge.
Good, thanks a lot. Marley, just roll on. Finally.
Finally, at postgraduate level, students are required to do independent research and be original in their approach to knowledge. This is countries
Now,
tend to
Mr. Lyons, this is described.
This is described as a speculative approach. The authors believe that education system in Asian countries tend to emphasize the first of these approaches, reproduction. Therefore, when Asian students study in Australia, they generally need to adjust their approach and learn to be more critical and analytical. The problems in the economic essay quoted above can therefore be explained in terms of the students' failure to adjust his approach.
His approach, yeah, thank you. All right, a few things going on in this paragraph. Let's just look on the right-hand side. Reporting expressions. Along with referring to the authors, remember how they mentioned you're going to have to refer to the authors a lot, so just don't keep using their names. Say they, the authors, the writers. Remember that box just above? Same with the verbs. You're going to have to say the authors, and then you don't want to say argue, or believe. Try and change this around. Here are some suggestions. Along with referring to the authors, you'll need to use a variety of reporting expressions to introduce their ideas and also to indicate what they do in their text. For example, the authors explore the question. They admit that. Now, you'd use that one if they're expressing an idea that doesn't really fit their position. It's quite a specific one, that one. They do think that, they mean that. To support this idea, the authors present a number of case studies. They actually propose that. Okay, so keep an eye on these reporting verbs. Now, I have mentioned before, and we have looked at the website, the Academic Phrase Bank. Remember the Academic Phrase Bank? That's got a list of reporting expressions in it. A big list. So go back to that and have a look. That Academic Phrase Bank, when it comes to the writing phase of this, is going to be really important. There's a whole section in the Academic Phrase Bank called Being Critical. And it's just full of collocations about critical thinking and critical analysis and critical reviews. Have a really good look at that and have a good read and print it off and underline it and do a lot of study on that before you sit down and write. And if you've got all that kind of in your head from reading, a lot of it's just going to flow out consciously and unconsciously. And if you print it out and you have a few pages of that stuff as you're writing, you can go back and refer to stuff that you've marked and underlined, and that will really lift your piece enormously. If you can get those collocations into your writing, this is very much the purpose of this task. So that if you have that stuff printed off and you work with it as you write, okay, not just on this critical review, but anything you're writing next year, whether it's in work or study or whatever, that phrase bank is such an important resource. Also, your exam dictionary as well. A lot of phrases in there for all sorts of things, aren't there? Reporting, explaining cause, comparing, contrasting. Have all those things next to you. And as I've said before, refresh yourself with those things. Just whenever you write, sit down to write for an hour or two, use your first 10-15 minutes as warm-up. It's just like you go to a gym session, you don't dive into the weights. You do a bit of running first, don't you, or whatever, you do some warm-up. Same with writing. Get out those resources and refresh yourself. And not even just generally. Remember with exam dictionary, I've suggested, think carefully, what do I have to do for this exercise? Do I have to compare and contrast? Do I have to talk about disadvantages? Do I have to talk about cause and effect? Oh, yeah, it's cause and effect. I have to explain something. Therefore, exam dictionary, go to the section on cause, go to the section on effect, have a good read of them, think about them, read them in quite a bit of detail, get warmed up. Not with the whole thing, not generally. Be specific, be precise. You'll be much more powerful that way. Same with the Academic Phrase Bank. It's a big website. What is it I'm needing to do? Do I have to write a critical review? Am I introducing research? Am I concluding? What am I doing? And have a good read of that before you write. Now, likewise, writing doesn't happen just once. With your essay, it's over days, isn't it? And even each day, you're in a different task. For example, when you start, introduction. Okay, so you go into your Academic Phrase Bank and look at all the stuff on the introduction and warm up with an introduction. You don't warm up with the conclusion stuff. As you get towards the end, right, I'm writing my conclusion today, get in there, have a look at the stuff on conclusion and warm up with that, and then try writing. It does make a difference. I have noticed people have reported to me that it has some impact. Okay, so if we look at this, what do we see as collocations we could use, apart from those reporting expressions that they've pointed out? Anything in the first line? In explaining, yeah. Absolutely. In explaining whatever, that unconscious, you propose, there's a reporting verb that's already been mentioned. Second line. This involves, yes, at the end, this involves da-da-da, possibly. It's all explaining stuff, isn't it? He's explaining collocations. Just before that, there's another one. What if you've got several ideas? And the first of these, yeah. Line 4, according to the authors. Yeah, another reporting form. Just remember, with according to the authors, common mistake, according to the authors, they propose. You don't need to say the two. According to the authors, and then you state what opinion they have. Yeah, this type of, yes, quite possibly. Next line, the second approach, yeah. So, Yeah, notice, you know, approach, new word. Further down, at this level, possibly. That's sort of more about education, which is really the topic specific thing. You could use it for different things, sure. Finally, yeah. Again, part of the sequence of key ideas. Last idea. Reporting verb a little bit further down. The authors believe. And then, just from there on, I don't think there are any transferable collocations, but have a look for hedging. What sort of hedging can you see in the last 4 lines? It's interesting because I can see 3 hedges and they're all different grammatically. Not therefore. Therefore is just a linking device.
Can therefore be.
Can, yes. There's a modal. See the second to last line. The problems in the economic essay quoted above can therefore be explained. Not are explained, they can be explained. A little bit softer. Any others? Tends to, yes. Tend to. The authors believe that education systems in Asian countries not emphasise, you know, if you said emphasise it would mean all of them, wouldn't it? Tend to emphasise. So tend to, verb. It's a verb structure. Main verb. Yep. Just so, back on the first one, can, modal verb, isn't it? Specific kind of verb, modal. Technique number 1. Technique number 2, with tend, main verb. There's one more in the next line.
To be.
Not to be, that's just, that doesn't really soften or boost. Generally, right. Asians, therefore, when Asian students study in Australia, they generally need, not they need. If you said they need, it would mean 100% of them need. They generally need. Okay, what's that part of speech? Generally. Anything with ly? Adverb, isn't it? Generally. So you can do with adverb. Probably, possibly, generally, mainly. Yeah? These are all hedges, aren't they? That's a common technique through doing it through adverbs.
John, about the verb, you said main verb is tend to emphasize.
Yeah.
You mean the meaning of the tend make it like a hedging?
Yeah. Yeah, if something tends to, it's a tendency only, isn't it? It's not like 100% of people, but it's a tendency. So all these things are little softeners or caution devices. Yeah. Now they're not all the way through, they're where it's necessary. Don't go overboard. That expression, don't go overboard. Don't do it too much, don't be excessive. But where you feel you have to tread carefully, use hedging, and notice and try this variety of techniques: adverb, modal, main verb. I've mentioned nouns. There is a high or low probability, or there is the possibility of, you know, you can do it with nouns as well. So it's good to have that variety. Okay, 5. Sadia, can you read 5? Oh, sorry, you read earlier, didn't you? Sorry, I'm picking on you. James.
To reinforce their views that these cultural differences in thinking exist, the authors refer to the work of Robert Kaplan. Kaplan argues that there are 5 distinct patterns for structuring an expository paragraph. Of particular interest here is the contrast he is establishing between the English pattern,
Yes.
which he calls linear.
Linear.
Which he calls linear, moving directly from the central idea to explanation and examples. And the Oriental pattern, described as an approach by indirection, sentences moving around the topic and avoiding any explicit judgment or conclusion.
Great, thanks. Any collocations going on here that might be useful? If you're explaining somebody's work,
To
I can see a few here that you might use.
reinforce the views.
To reinforce their views, possibly that.
Means to
Yeah.
explain. To
Yes, and to